Giridhanadhari Yashoyanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashoyanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Balaba Girivanadhari Gopijana Balaba Girivanadhari Yashoyanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashoyanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Astottara Sadashi Srimad ISKCON Founder Acharya His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Gaudiya Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Shri Goho Śrī Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Syamakunda Radha Kundi Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavandam Ki Yamuna Maya Ki Shridham Mayapur Ki Ganga Maya Ki Yamuna Maya Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulsi Maharani Ki Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvati Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nasta Prayeshu Abadeshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Canto 1, Chapter 18, Text 11. ṛṣaya ūcuḥ Sūta jīva samāḥ saumya śāśvatīr viśadaṁ yaśaḥ tvam samāḥ kṛṣṇasya martyānām amṛtaṁ hīna ṛṣaya ūcuḥ Sūta jīva samāḥ saumya śāśvatīr viśadaṁ yaśaḥ tvam saumya kṛṣṇasya martyānām amṛtaṁ hīna ṛṣaya ūcuḥ Sūta jīva samāḥ saumya śāśvatīr viśadaṁ yaśaḥ tvam śaṁsasi kṛṣṇasya martyānām amṛtaṁ hīna ūcuḥ Sūta jīva samāḥ saumya śāśvatīr viśadaṁ yaśaḥ tvam śaṁsasi kṛṣṇasya martyānām amṛtaṁ hīna ūcuḥ Sūta jīva samāḥ saumya śāśvatīr viśadaṁ yaśaḥ tvam śaṁsasi kṛṣṇasya martyānām amṛtaṁ hīna Sūta jīva samāḥ saumya śāśvatīr viśadaṁ yaśaḥ tvam śaṁsasi kṛṣṇasya martyānām amṛtaṁ hīna Ladies, ṛṣaya ūcuḥ Sūta jīva samāḥ saumya śāśvatīr viśadaṁ yaśaḥ tvam śaṁsasi kṛṣṇasya martyānām amṛtaṁ ṛṣaya ūcuḥ Sūta jīva samāḥ saumya śāśvatīr viśadaṁ yaśaḥ tvam śaṁsasi kṛṣṇasya martyānām amṛtaṁ hīna ṛṣaya ūcuḥ Sūta jīva samāḥ saumya tvam saumya kṛṣṇasya Anyone else? ṛṣaya ūcuḥ The good sages said, Sūta, O Sūta Gosvāmī, jīva, we wish you life for samāḥ, many years, saumya, grave, śāśvatīḥ, eternal, viśadam, particularly yaśaḥ, in fame, tvam, because you, saumyasi, speaking nicely, kṛṣṇasya, of Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa, martyānām, of those who die, amṛtaṁ, eternity of life. He certainly, naha, our. The good sage said, O grave Sūta Gosvāmī, may you live many years and have eternal fame, for you are speaking very nicely about the activities of Lord Kṛṣṇa, the Personality of Godhead. This is just like a nectar for mortal beings like us. The good sages said, O grave Sūta Gosvāmī, may you live many years and have eternal fame. For you are speaking very nicely about the activities of Lord Kṛṣṇa, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is just like nectar for mortal beings like us. Srila Prabhupada's Purport. When we hear about the transcendental qualities and activities of the Personality of Godhead, we may always remember what has been spoken by the Lord Himself in Bhagavad-gītā 4:9. His acts, even when He acts in human society, are all transcendental, for they are all accentuated by the spiritual energy of the Lord, which is distinguished from His material energy. As stated in the Bhagavad-gītā, such acts are called divyam. This means that He does not act or take His birth like an ordinary living being under the custody of material energy, nor is His body material or changeable like that of ordinary living beings. And one who understands this fact, either from the Lord or from authorized sources, is not reborn after leaving the present material body. Such an enlightened soul is admitted into the spiritual realm of the Lord and engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Therefore, the more we hear about the transcendental activities of the Lord, as they are stated in Bhagavad-gītā and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the more we can know about His transcendental nature and thus make definite progress on the path back to Godhead. Om Jnana Timidandasya Gina Gina Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Gena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So the good sages of Naimisharanya are wishing that Sūta Gosvāmī may have a long life and have eternal fame. Why? Merely because he's speaking very nicely about the glories, activities, form, beauty, pastimes, and relationships of Lord Kṛṣṇa, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rasavarjam rasopiyasya param dristva nivartante. So glorifying the Supreme Lord is the source of great happiness and pleasure, because the Lord is full of ananda, and everyone wants ananda. Ananda miya bhyasat. Everyone's seeking after pleasure. Unfortunately, in the material world, jalam tat udbhavaischanam hitvagya jalam kamyaya mrigatrishnam upadavet yitanchata artadriksvataha. Just like human beings are just like the foolish deer. He's in the forest and he's stepping on grass, and the grass covers a well full of water. But he's looking out into the desert, and he sees the mirage of water in the desert. Hitvagya jalam kamyaya. He wants water. But he's looking out in the desert, and he sees this false water. Bahir artamanina. Everyone is looking outside of themselves for happiness and pleasure, right? Na te vidu. So arta gatimi vishnum. Durashaye bahir artamanina. They're foolish. They're uneducated. So the happiness and pleasure for human beings and for all beings, even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he made even the dogs and tigers and deer in the forest chant Hare Krishna. And we know that Shivananda Sena was very attached to a dog, and he brought the dog along to visit Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this dog got the blessings of the devotee Shivananda Sena, a very important devotee of the Lord. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was feeding him green mango pulp, and the dog was chanting Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada said that, yeah, Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he can make even the animals develop love of God and go back to Godhead. That is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Sūta Gosvāmī is being blessed by the sages to live a long life. So if one is actually in Krishna consciousness, of course, Srila Prabhupada, we wanted Prabhupada to live forever with us. We also were praying, Krishna, please keep our spiritual master for a few more, more years, like that. Of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, he reasons ill who thinks that Vaishnavas die, for Vaishnavas live in sound, and thus, in living in sound, they spread the holy names of the Lord around. Here it's described that although Krishna descends down into the material world, Ekapad Vibhuti, 1/4 of the Lord's creation, is the material cosmos. And he also is the superintendent of the material world, Maya Dakshena Prakriti, Suyate Sacharacharam. But he also is appearing here to attract his devotees and all to establish this great transcendental history of the Lord. Ramalila was spoken 800,000 years ago. Lord Rama appeared 800,000 years ago. Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago. The Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is being spoken 5,000 years ago. But because it is full of the transcendental activities of the Lord, his name, form, instructions, and pastimes, it's actually amrita, it's immortal. And when we cetasa sarva karmani maya sanyasya matpara, buddhi yoga mupashritaha, Krishna tells Arjuna in the 18th chapter, always become conscious of me. Mai ashakta mano parta, he says in the 7th chapter, gyasyasi tatrinu, hear from me, Arjuna, how by thinking of me and taking shelter of me, Maya Shakta Manaparta Nityam Yukta, you will attain pure knowledge of me. He tells Arjuna that in the first verse of the 7th chapter. So Krishna, when he appears here, he's telling Arjuna, and he's letting the world know. And the sages are saying, Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishvajopi san. That prakritam samavastabhya sambhavami atmamaya. That he appears again and again in many millenniums. Once in a day of Brahma, Krishna is appearing here in this particular universe. So Ajopi san avyayatma, he's unborn and he never expires. He appears again and again. Bahuni me vyatittani janmani janmani charjuna. Mam tu Vedana Kashan, he says, many, many births both you and I have taken. I remember all of them, but you remember none of them. Name vidu suragana prabhavam nam ṛṣaya aham adir hi devanam. He says, no one really knows me, even the great sages and the great saintly persons, the great demigods, none of them really know me. I'm the source of all the demigods and all the sages. So, in this way, Arjuna was a little bewildered. But Krishna is saying, because he's transcendental. Tasmat sharam atito ham aksharam apichotamaha. Atosmi loke vede cha pratishta purushottamaha. He tells Arjuna in the 15th chapter that I'm transcendental to both the fallible and infallible beings. And because I am that transcendental personality, all the Vedas and throughout all the planets, everyone glorifies me as that supreme Purushottama, the supreme person above all beings. That is Lord Kṛṣṇa. So out of his mercy for the fallen souls, he appears again and again. And those persons who are actually pious and who are searching for the truth, as Krishna says, Chaturveda bhajante mam jana sukhitina Arjuna, arto jigyasu artarti gyani cha bhartar shabha, that 4 kinds of pious people approach Krishna for something. They're either inquisitive or they want some higher knowledge, they're intellectuals, they want to know what the origin of the universe is, or what is the real truth of life, what is the purpose of life, or they're suffering, or they have some economic needs. Krishna says it's fine. They all approach Krishna. They're all searching after Krishna. And either Krishna's representative or Krishna himself delivers them and awakens them to the transcendental truth that although Krishna seems to be a person, he is a person, but he's not an ordinary person. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha, as Lord Brahma says. Even Lord Brahma, for some reason, he tried to play tricks on Krishna. He was challenging Krishna, a little bit insubordinate, because Lord Brahma is born from the lotus navel of Lord Garbhodaksha Vishnu, who is an expansion of the quadruple expansions who come from Lord Balaram, who is the first expansion of Krishna. And Brahma, we know he stole Krishna's friends, cowherd boys, and the calves. And so Krishna showed his mystic opulence by expanding himself as the cowherd boys and the calves for 1 year. And at the same time, so many personalities, the inhabitants of Vrindavan, the mothers of the cowherd boys, they got the blessings of having Krishna in their home and nursing them for 1 year, taking care of them for a year. And the cows were so in ecstasy that they were feeding their calves, nursing their calves for 1 year. At the same time, Lord Brahma, he became bewildered. Brahma Mohan, he became bewildered by Krishna's unlimited opulence. And so he came to his senses, and he started offering wonderful prayers to the Lord, and also begging forgiveness for transgression, for the transgression he had committed. So these are all wonderful pastimes that we, the devotees of the Lord, are very, very happy to always hear the wonderful glories of the Lord, his pastimes, because they're absolutely very purifying. They purify the heart and help us in our journey towards pure devotional service, which is the ultimate purpose of our lives, Tada rajastamo bhavo kama lobhadayascha cheta eteranavridam stita pragya prasiditi. We want to attain that platform of stita pragya, which is continuous and uninterrupted, unmotivated. One is fixed, nishta, and from nishta one experiences ruchi, or a taste for serving the Lord 24 hours a day without any interruption. Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhya jīmam namaskuru. Krishna says, always think of me. And he said, tasmat sarvashu kalashu mam amnusmara yudhyacha. My arpato mano buddhir. That you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time engage in your service. Excuse me. Forgot to turn my phone off. Engage in my devotional service. He told Arjuna that you should engage in your guna and karma while thinking of me. Perform your duty, he tells Arjuna, in many places in the Bhagavad-gītā. Always remember me, serve me, like this, and perform your duties. Sahajam karma konteya, that all your activities that we do will be covered by faults, just as fire is covered by smoke. Sadosham apina, sahajam karma konteya, sadosham api, I'm forgetting that verse. But that verse, Krishna tells Arjuna in the 18th chapter that all activities are covered by faults, but one should simply continue in performing one's duty, even though it is may have some faults. He goes on to say, it's better to perform your duty imperfectly than to perform another's duty perfectly. So Arjuna, he was instructed by Krishna in this way. So in our daily activities, in our life, we want to continue serving the Lord, performing the 9 processes of devotional service, beginning with Shravanam Kirtanam, and then Smaranam, remembering the Lord. And after some time, by the mercy of the spiritual master, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai, by the mercy of the spiritual master, one attains spontaneous devotional service to the Lord. This is the second part of our sadhana bhakti. In the beginning, there is Vedi bhakti, or forcing ourselves mechanically to practice the rules and regulations of devotional service, force ourselves to chant the holy names, and so on. But gradually, as one develops a ruchi, or a taste for chanting the holy name, after all, the holy name is full of nectar. It's full of nectar, is non-different from Krishna. One engages more spontaneously in devotional service, raganuga bhakti. So, all the stories in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, they're meant for us to always fill our hearts and minds and avoid the pitfalls in our path of devotional service. Atyahara prayasascha prajalpaniyam agraha. That many times we may engage in some worldly discussion with devotees. We say, I'm associating with devotee. It means associating based on glorifying the transcendental activities and the Lord's transcendental pastimes, His transcendental beauty, and so on. Atyahara prayasascha prajalpaniyam agraha. Prajalpa. We want to avoid this gramya katha and so on, and always be enthusiastic in discussion, the different various activities, instructions, and pastimes of the Lord and his devotees. And sometimes devotees, we will deviate from the path in some way, or we may face some obstacles in the path. Tatenu kampam shushamikshmano bunjane vatma kritam vipakam rigvagva bhibir vidadan namaste jivete yo mukti pade sadaya bhat. But Krishna says the devotee, even though he's experiencing some reverse conditions in his life, some kinds of obstacles in his life, because he's always depending on the lotus feet of Lord Kṛṣṇa. He's always trying to remember the lotus feet of the Lord. As Queen Kunti prays, let me remember you again and again. Let these calamities come again and again so that I can remember you again and again. Vipada shantuta śāśvatīr. And thus stop the repetition of birth and death. That is the ultimate purpose. So we want to avoid mundane discussions. We want to practice and avoid these 6 principles that hurt our devotional service: overeating, over-collecting, speaking topics, mundane topics. Prabhupada says the entire world, they're preoccupied with movies, cinema, mundane topics. The entire world is full of mundane topics. Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin pratisoka abadavati api. In this verse, Sukadeva is saying that those literatures which glorify the Supreme Lord, they are of another nature, unlike the mundane literatures which crow-like people are very fond of pursuing. He calls them crow-like people. Swan-like people, they're simply devotees of the Lord, simply want to glorify the Lord and his devotees constantly, and that these literatures like Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and Bhagavad-gītā create a revolution in the lives of the world's misdirected civilization. Grinanti Gayanti creates a revolution in the world's misdirected civilization. So this is the predicament of human society. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is extremely merciful, and he has come now. And Krishnadas Kaviraj describes the transcendental activities that in Kali Yuga the Lord has appeared, and now we're celebrating the Rath Yatra pastimes of the Lord here in Mayapur. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's wonderful ecstatic pastimes are described by Krishnadas Kaviraj, where this Rath Yatra festival actually represents when Lord Kṛṣṇa and Balaram and Subhadra and the Yadas, they went to the Kuruksetra field during a very auspicious time, and there they met the inhabitants of Vrindavan. And Gundicha Mandir represents Vrindavan, and Purushottam Kshetra or Jagannath Puri temple represents Kuruksetra or Dwarka. And so the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they've been missing Krishna for many, many years, and they want to bring him back to Vrindavan. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, when he's dancing in the ecstatic procession, he's exhibiting all these symptoms of love for Krishna, all these ecstatic symptoms. And the devotees are observing, and they're also chanting and dancing in ecstasy. This is the very simple process for us, simply chanting and dancing and eating prasadam. So as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing and so on, he was rolling on the ground, as I mentioned yesterday. His hairs were standing on end. He was exhibiting all these symptoms of love for Krishna. So Rupa Goswami states that yes, pure devotional service is very rarely achieved, but that's what we're actually striving for, pure devotional service. Krishna says to Arjuna, Bhaktiyastu ananyaya shakyam ahamevam vidorjuna, that if you really want to see me, if the qualification for seeing me in this beautiful form, this two-armed form that I'm revealing to you now, you can't get it simply by studies of the Vedas or performing tapasyas, naham vidir na tapasa, nadanena na chejaya, by worship or giving in charity. It says, bhaktistu ananyaya shakya, aham evam vidorjuna. That you can know and see me as I am simply by engaging in unalloyed devotional service, devoid of any kind of subtle or gross motive. In other words, we may come to devotional service and we may be contaminated by some material desires. So the Gundicha temple also represents our heart. And we want Krishna to stay in our hearts. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he brought the devotees to the Gundicha temple prior to the Rath Yatra festival, and he wanted to prepare the Gundicha temple nicely and purify it so that Lord Jagannath would come there and sit there for 9 days. So all the devotees, the Maharaj Pratapuruja arranged for brooms, hundreds of brooms and hundreds of buckets, and they swept, first of all, outside of the Gundicha temple very nicely and very, very meticulously. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sometimes, he would chastise them if they weren't cleaning it properly. And then they went inside, and many, many buckets of water were being passed by the devotees, and as they passed them, they would chant the name of Krishna. And they were washing the walls, the ceiling, the floor of the Gundicha temple. So in the Purport, Srila Prabhupada describes, in such a way we have to keep our hearts very, very clean and devoid of any kind of subtle or gross material desires. Ananyaya, bhaktistu ananyaya. Become free from desire for puja, worship of others, pratishta, being full of egoism, full of dambo darpo bimanascha. Krishna tells Arjuna these are demonic qualities: pride, arrogance, conceit. So the heart has to be as pure and clean and refreshing as the Gundicha temple, and then the Lord will want to sit there. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he actually was cleaning the mandapa in the Gundicha temple with his tears and with his own cloth. And after that, they had a huge kirtan outside the Gundicha mandir, and where all the devotees were chanting in ecstasy. So the Rath Yatra festival, the devotees are pulling Lord Jagannath, and Lord Jagannath is observing the dancing of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who represents Srimati Radharani, and Lord Jagannath represents Krishna. And Radharani is pulling Krishna back to Vrindavan, where he belongs. Vrindavana parichaja padamekam nadi gacchati. Lord Krishna actually never leaves Vrindavan. He's either there in his manifest, prakash, or aprakash, unmanifest form. And so these wonderful pastimes of the Lord, which are eternal and are constantly going on, this is the source of pleasure for the devotees of the Lord. Here Prabhupada says, the more we hear about the transcendental activities of the Lord, as they are stated in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and the Bhagavad-gītā, the more we can know about his transcendental nature and thus make definite progress on the path back home, back to Godhead. So the path is not easy. It takes, as we heard yesterday, utsahan nischayat dharyat tat tat karma pravartanat. The one must be always very enthusiastic, be very patient, and be full of confidence or determination. So let us continue to endeavor with determination, patience, and enthusiasm in serving Lord Kṛṣṇa in a humble and patient way. and try to please the great acharyas, Srila Prabhupada and his predecessor acharyas. Srila Prabhupada ki. So I'd like to open up for comments and questions. I'm not very inclined to give 2 lectures in 2 days. It's quite challenging, so somehow this was scheduled in. So I can open up for comments or questions now from the devotees regarding this verse. The good sages said, "O grave Sūta Gosvāmī, may you live many years and have eternal fame, for you're speaking very nicely about the activities of Lord Kṛṣṇa, the personality of Godhead. This is just like nectar for mortal beings like us." Question, comment? Yeah. You're very kind. Yeah, we tend to be engaged in activities and not engage the mind or the intelligence. This is, very characteristic of neophyte devotees. So probably that's why sometimes we're put in some situations that are difficult. Because when we're put in difficult situations, like the Pandavas, Queen Kunti prays for difficulties, Gajendra, he was actually Indradumna Maharaj in South India, and he was just very innocently meditating. It wasn't like he was trying to cause trouble or anything, nor was he very proud of his a position as a devotee. But he was meditation and took a vow of silence, and I believe it was Agastya Muni that came to his ashram while he was meditating. He had left his kingdom and taken vanaprastha. And the Muni cursed him because he didn't respond. He didn't greet him at his kutir. And he was cursed to take birth as an elephant. Of course, the curse also had a benefit that Lord Vishnu would come and touch him and he'd go back to Godhead. He went back to Vaikuntha. But because of the situations he was put in, first cursed as an elephant, then put in a very critical situation. The crocodile was fighting with him for 1,000 years. The crocodile had grabbed his foot, and they were constantly battling for 1,000 years. And he became weaker and weaker and weaker. So at a point of great tribulation, what did he do? Like Draupadi, okay, let me pray to Krishna. So he started praying and glorifying the Lord, offering prayers to the Lord, that the Lord is the all-powerful, the almighty. He's the cause of all causes. He's the cause and effect, in fact. Like this, he offered beautiful prayers. So one thing we can do is offer prayers to the Lord. That's how we can engage our mind, by offering prayers to the Lord. Oh Lord, you're the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'm struggling in my devotional service, or I'm forgetting you. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Oh, I just forgot you for about 2 hours. That's why we have strong sadhana bhakti morning program. Helps us remember the Lord throughout the day. So, these are outlined by Sūta Gosvāmī also in the Upadeshamrita. And one is symptoms of surrender, accept things favorable, reject things unfavorable, always depend on the mercy of the Lord, see the Lord as one's friend, master, and protector, feeling oneself completely helpless in the presence of the Lord, and atmanivedam, of course, giving everything up to the Lord. So in this way, we can try to remember the Lord, always keep the mind, as Bhakti Siddhanta said, beat the mind with a broomstick, beat the mind with shoes in the morning and a broomstick in the evening 100 times. Because the mind is not our friend at this point. Bandhur atmanmanas tasya, anatmanas tu shatruve. The mind is your enemy if you don't control it. Yenatmaya atmana jivata. One who doesn't control the mind becomes the enemy. Bandhur atmanmanas tasya. The mind is only your friend when it's fully controlled. So how do we control the mind? Good morning program, good sadhana bhakti, chanting good rounds in association of devotees, hearing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, worshipping Tulsi, and then offering prayers to the Lord. And in this way we're engaging our mind in the service of the Lord by offering prayers. Gajendra was in a very difficult situation, offered prayers to the Lord. The Lord actually came on Garuda and delivered him. So we can also pray to the Lord to come on Garuda and deliver us one day. That would be very nice. So we are nice, well situated, one who is in devotional service. We are well situated. And even there may be some struggles on the path. Krishna says, Chipram bhavati dharman ma śāśvatīr nagacchati kuntiya pratijani ha name bhakti pranaya. Declared boldly Arjuna, my devotee will never perish. Krishna will do anything for his devotee as long as the devotee is continuing to avoid offenses and to be a soul surrendered unto him. Avoid the 10 offenses. The most important one, of course, is Vaishnava aparad. This is the elephant offense. So we see that Krishna on the battlefield did many tricks to protect his devotee. So Krishna will also protect us if we pray to him. Protect me from Maya. Maya is everywhere. Even in Sridham Mayapur, there's Maya here too. So we constantly want the protection of the Lord. And Krishna will break all his vows to protect us if we're serious enough, as he did on the battlefield. He instructed Yudhisthira to tell a lie. He covered the sun for Jayadratha to be killed because Arjuna took this vow. He did so many tricks. He broke his vow and attacked Bhishma. He was going to kill Bhishma with the chariot wheel. So Krishna says, Bhaktosi me sakha cheti. You're my devotee and my friend. I was always keep you in my favor. Just like the cat picks up the kitten very nicely. But for the non-devotee, the cat is death personified. But the devotee, he's overcoming all these obstacles. And he tells Arjuna, just be conscious of me and you'll become mat prasada tarishyasi atache tvam ahankaram nashoshasi vinangshasi. If you don't hear the Bhagavad-gītā, if you don't take my instructions to heart, then he says, vinangshasi, you will be vanquished. If you act out of false ego and not following the instructions of Bhagavad-gītā, you'll be vanquished. So we're doing our activities, and unfortunately, many times, myself anyway, I'm the doer. Karmani vadikars tema shukadacha, Krishna, don't be attached to the outcome. Don't think that you're the doer. Don't even be attached to not doing your duty. In that verse, Krishna tells Arjuna. So perform your duty without any kind of attachment, fully detached. Your duty is based on your guna and karma, your qualities and your tendencies. Some are more Brahminical than others, some are more managerial than others, some like to just use their hands and work, some are good in farming or agriculture, trading, within the halo of devotional service, different tendencies that we have. So yat karoshi darshanasi jajuhosi dadasi. Whatever you do, do for Krishna. Engage your mind and intelligence, body and words, everything in his service. So, to forget that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead is to be doing our devotional service, but there's, Kapila says there's 81 types of devotional service, 3 modes of nature cubed, 3 times 3 times 3, Prabhupada said. So we want Vishuddha Sattva devotional service, pure bhakti, pure devotional service, right? Vishuddha Sattva, transcendental to the modes of nature. That means without envy, without false ego. Wherever there's false ego, there's envy. And Krishna doesn't appreciate if we're envious of other Vaishnavas. He doesn't really want us to harbor any kind of material motivations within the realm of devotional service. That's described in the Gundicha Mandir pastime, where Bhaktisiddhanta refers to weeds which are around your devotional creeper. And you're chanting Hare Krishna, but you're watering the weeds. And then he talks about it. One of them is jīva hinsa, envy of others. So one should become non-envious. That's pure devotional service. Amanidvama, dambidvama, hinsa, shantir, arjavam. Acharyopashanam, shocham, shant. This verse is in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad-gītā. Be humble, free from pride. Ahimsa not just means killing animals, it also means not putting anyone else into anxiety. Avoiding putting others into, it's called jīva hinsa, putting others. So if you put devotees into anxiety, it won't help your devotional service. You're simply watering weeds. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu. Haribol. Yes, please.
You mentioned that mind is everywhere.
Yeah.
There is a nice pastime of Lord Śrī and Bhakti-Thakur. Bhakti-Thakur was in Calcutta, and Lord Kṛṣṇa released the message to him. He gave the message to somebody, and the person in Calcutta gave to him. Please come to Nagpur, come to Maya. Calcutta is full of Maya. Bhakti-Thakur replied, there's no question of Maya being the place where I am.
Jai.
Also, Prabhupada says
Haribol.
on the cover of the Nectar magazine, where there is light, there's no darkness.
Thank you very much. The comment is that wherever there's a pure devotional service, there's no Maya. So Krishna's back is Maya, Krishna's front is Krishna Surya Samai Maya Haya Andakar, Yahan Krishna Tahimai Mayam Adhikar. That Krishna is like the sun, Maya is like darkness. Wherever there's a sun, there's no darkness. So keep the sun of Krishna as we go on in our devotional service. And Be diligent. Always be diligent in our devotional service. Don't take any breaks. We have to engage. That's why it says utsahan. Engage enthusiastically with intelligence so that we can always stay transcendental to the modes of nature and Maya. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.